to off-season New York Giants just happened. We are giving our live reactions after it. Again, as always, if you came here to see the actual stream of the show, sorry about it, but we're going to go into such great detail. We're really going to paint the picture. We're going to do the Bob Ross mental pictures here for you. So do you really need to watch it? Who knows? But if you did watch it, definitely jump in the chat. Definitely leave some comments. Let me know what you thought. Let us know what you thought. Trevor Land and myself once again next week. Hopefully we get Luke here as well. Last week we talked about some of the things we want to see for the rest of Hard Knocks, New York Giants here. And I'm not sure if we got that this time, but this was the draft process, the pre-draft process. This was the pre-free agency process. Again, this whole Hard Knocks is for the football nerds. This is for the people who truly get into the actual football stuff, like the building the team stuff. So I do think this episode was interesting in terms of quick hitters, instant reactions. What was your overall thoughts of episode 2?
It was interesting to see Daboll run the room during interviews. Obviously, head coaches are going to get a big say in that. But I mean, you talk about, if you want to, I don't know, it's kind of overused, but like alphas in the room. Probably Daboll's alpha in any room he's ever stepped into.
Yep.
And you can tell the way his mind works, but snapping back guys into play recall and what plays do you like and what do you think about cover 2 and all that good stuff. So I think, if anything, I think one of the number one takeaways that maybe now people will talk about is that it shows that Brian Daboll absolutely should be a head coach in the NFL, and he's one of the better ones that's out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And shout out Bobby in the chat. This is New York Giants Hard Knocks episode 2 reaction. So that just aired on HBO Max. So we're giving our reactions to it live. So if you watched it, definitely let us know what you thought. If you didn't watch it, maybe us talking about it will get you interested in watching it. But yeah, I mean, before this whole thing, I think the most exciting thing about New York Giants Hard Knocks to me was Brian Daboll. Love Brian Daboll. Everything about Brian Daboll. He is the alpha. He is a great head coach. Are there better X's and O's coaches out there? I think absolutely. But he truly is a leader of men. He commands the room. He is a delegator. He is I think he's a rah guy. I think he's a terrific head coach. I really think he's incredible. And he has all of the experience to back him up, even though I think a lot of people would disagree with that. But truthfully, he's worked with some of the best players. They've went into it a little bit. I mean, people forget that he was on that Jet staff with Favre and stuff like that. But he's been there. He's done that. He's learned from Rex Ryan. He's learned from the greats of, actual players. He's learned from Nick Saban. He's learned from a million people. He knows offense. He's a brainiac. He's a brainiac, but he doesn't act like it because he's a football guy. There's a difference. And then, I mean, I texted you just saying, I wish Daboll was our head coach as Packer fans. Like, there's just such a difference from Matt LaFleur, who we know spends hours a week manscaping. Like, that's not even a joke. Like there's an importance. He puts precedent on that. Like, that's in his daily schedule. And Brian Daboll is just football. I don't know if he knows anything else.
Brian Daboll is, y'all think I can run the 40-yard dash in under 7, and if you say no, fuck you. Like that. Yeah. That's the guy you want running your team. How far do you think I can throw this ball? How fast can I run? How far can I kick it? Those are the guys we need as head coaches, not these Sean McVay regens.
I think McVay is closer to that than to LaFleur, to be honest. I think.
Well, that's why I said regens, like
the. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, like the Zach Taylor, the LaFleur, Yeah, I agree with that. Truthfully, like if that was Matt LaFleur in that scene, maybe LaFleur asked that as a joke, trying to be human, trying to be relatable. And if you shut him down, he'd just be like, oh, yeah, you're probably right. Okay. Like, he's a beta. Like, that's what he is. And Daboll, again, I have a similar mindset. Maybe it's a flaw. I don't know. I think it's a pro, where it's like, I truly think I could do anything. If you put me in a ring with Brock Lesnar, I think I could probably hurt him. Maybe it's my
Yeah.
face hurting his fist. I don't know, but I feel like I have a shot.
Well,
Like,
this episode
you
is
know,
also just why like you hear people like retiring and why retirement is so hard for them, or like or college players, and you ask them like, "What do you miss?" and they say like the meals and the locker room. Like when they said, "Where would I have to start?" and the guy said the 35-yard line to beat Xavier Worthy at a 40. Like that's
yeah.
just like I text you that that's just guys being dudes, and that's what everybody does every weekend, and they wish they could do it for their entire life.
I just can't picture Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur having a conversation like that. Like I don't think they like each other. I don't think they're funny. I don't think they have any riz. I don't think they have anything like that. They're not human.
I don't even think like we saw say what you will about the management of the Giants, and I think you can say a lot about them. There's
For sure.
clearly a connect between them and the coaching staff, and that means a lot. Because say
Mhm.
what you will about the Packers, and I know they're in a better spot right now. There is clearly a disconnect between the coach and the GM, and that has been going on for way too long.
Yeah. I think I mean Shane or whatever, the GM, I like him. I think he's fine. I don't think he's incredible. I don't think he's a top 10 GM. I don't think any of that, but I think he's fine. I think the coaching staff is good. Um, the issue with Wink was there's two alphas and you can't have two alphas. They're going to fight for the head. Like that's what all that was. Like this organization, I think can be good. Players have to buy in. They need their cornerstone guys though. Like they need their captains, and then the captains have to lead the team. And looking around that team, I don't know who that is. Like there's some on the defensive side of the ball. Truthfully, offense, it might immediately be Neighbors. Like, I don't know if it's not Daniel Jones. I don't think. I think he can get there. I'm still a believer in him as a leader and as a player, but he hasn't. I mean, his confidence is gone, and like any life has been sucked out of him. Offensive line, I'm not Andrew Thomas, maybe, but I think he's more of a quiet guy. And the rest of the receivers and running backs, I mean, there's nothing there at all.
Yeah, and this is kind of transforming into another part where they kind of keyed in on Neighbors without keying in on Neighbors. Like, obviously, we knew they drafted him, but even if you didn't know that, you could tell they were kind of looking his way. Like, they made a lot of good points. Like, at first, they're like, he's no Boy Scout, but then I think the same guy said all the greats, none of them are choir boys, and he's right. And I thought it was very interesting to hear how they talked about how Daniel Jones loves Malik Neighbors, because that's going to be big. Because if Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors is a leader and Daniel Jones is behind him, and you have a bunch of betas, that'll work. It might take some time, but that could work, and that would make more sense because as much as I love Romo Dunze, I don't know if he could work plug in day one as a vocal leader as a Malik Neighbors. Same with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I don't know if Neighbors is a leader. I think he's a dog, like they talked about. I don't know if he's a leader. He's a head case. Like there's no two ways about it. And I'm saying that with peace and love. Like every receiver I've been around, like on an actual coaching staff, like at least good ones, they fucking suck to be around. But they're incredible and they're great teammates, but they're going to talk their shit and they're going to piss and moan and cry because they didn't get the ball when they were triple covered. Like that happens with the best guys. And that's why out of all they interviewed, they showed in interviews, they showed Daniels, they showed Caleb Williams, they showed Drake May, they showed Roma Dunze, they showed Marvin Harrison Jr., and then they showed Neighbors. I don't think they showed anybody else. I think by far, and I'm not even sure if it's debatable, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. looked the worst out of all of them by far. I don't know how that's going to work in Arizona, truthfully, because I think he is a very similar personality to Kyler Murray, and they're both going to fuck up and do wrong things and never say a word to each other. And it's just going to be poor leadership from the top down.
Yeah, I mean,
Weird.
say what you will about fiery personalities, but this thought that like what really kills teams is that silence where nobody's speaking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That will end it all because it'll progress and progress and progress, and eventually it'll blow up 12 weeks later. But after 12 weeks, it's too fucking late. You'd
Mm-hmm.
rather have it blow up then, get some common respect, and move on. Marvin Harrison is not that guy, and yeah, I don't know how that fit would have worked in New York.
It's possible that once he gets comfortable and he has ownership over the offense a little bit, that maybe he'll start to speak up. And I think his dad will certainly tell him that, because his dad was that. Like, he was super quiet on the field a lot of times. Marvin Harrison Sr. He just went about his business. But I mean, he talked his shit. He demanded the ball. He did his stuff too. He's smart. So, I mean, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. is a similar player. Maybe he'll become a similar player. People are hoping he's a Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald, nicest guy in the world, not cocky on the field. He's helping defenders up. He demanded the ball. I can promise you that. And he let Carson Palmer, he let all of them know, I'm fucking open. You better get me the ball. I can promise you I'm not going to drop it. And Harrison has to do the same thing, or he's just going to be forgotten about. Because Kyler Murray's not going to, like, Kyler Murray can't see him, quite literally. Like, he has to trust him and know that he's open. So you have to tell him. It's weird. It's going to be the fucking Greg Dortch show in Arizona. It's going to suck. We can talk more about that draft stuff. Obviously, Daboll, the way he spoke to the quarterbacks, you can tell he speaks quarterback. And just getting Daniels, to talk about something non-football and then get him right back into football just to see if he'll fuck up, just to see what he'll do. And I like Daniels. I like his answer of, what do you want me to do in a cover one? Throw a touchdown. That's the school I'm from too. When I draw up a play, like, some of the things I used to say was, worst case scenario, this play is going to score a touchdown. Like, that's where I'm at. So I love it. But Daboll flipping all the positions around and telling him to recall it, so smart. And it's fine if Daniels makes that mistake once. He made it twice in a row. And I can tell you, Daboll was done with the interview after he made the second mistake. I can promise you that. Because you cannot make the same mistake twice, especially in the same meeting. You can't do it.
Well, and say what you will about Daboll, and if you call him stupid, you're wrong. But I mean, call him whatever you want. When he heard that answer of throw a touchdown, that wasn't like a cocky throw a touchdown answer, fuck you. That was
Correct.
I don't know what the answer is, throw a touchdown. Like, you could definitely tell the difference. And I think that combined, like you said, with him fucking up twice, although it's a small one, is just because you could tell he's like, no, that's okay. He brushed over it real quick. He's like, I got what I needed. Move on.
Yeah, that interview is more about Neighbors, I think, than about Daniels anyway. And they got some information out of it. I will say, though, I think Drake May was super impressive. I think Caleb Williams was super impressive. I really like both of them. I like how May sort of asked questions back, but you can tell he's a brainiac. You can tell he's like super, super smart. And Caleb Williams feels like, I feel like Drake May is super smart, but he's thinking about it. And I feel like Caleb Williams knows it. Like, he's just it. He gets it.
The other interesting thing that I thought, throwing in the other quarterback, JJ McCarthy, when he was writing out the plays, holy shit, was that long. And the fact that Daboll was like, yeah, that's one word. It's like, that tells you alone, like, Harbaugh is a fucking madman for that as a play call.
Yeah, that's a Grudenism as well. Like, yeah, it's such a waste of time. It's such a waste. There's better ways to do it. I understand, like, every part of the play is just saying what the play is. So it kind of isn't that hard. And if you go a step further to shorten it, like, you have to remember what the abbreviation is for then. But in terms of just getting in a rhythm, getting to the line, and let's not waste fucking time, it's so good. Like, you have to shorten it. You have to do it. And they gave a little tidbits about the players that I really love, by the way, too. Like the fact that I don't think it's a big deal that McCarthy didn't have control really of the blocking assignments, but I think it is telling a little bit, because there's players that go up there. If there's quarterbacks that they run the show, and in Minnesota, that actually could be a little bit of a slow burn. He'll get a little bit of confusion because he'll be trusted to do that in Minnesota. I think. I don't believe they'll have their center do anything with that there. So that'll be a slow learning process there, but he was given responsibility to check and, kill plays at the line. I think that's a big deal. Anything else about in terms of like scouting the prospects? I just really enjoyed it. I thought they did a really good job with it.
I thought they did a good job. I thought they put a little too much into the. It was weird. At some points, I thought they put a little too much into the scouts. like in terms of I think her name was Hannah and some of the other guys that were there. It's like either go into the scouts or don't. Like it felt like a weird middle
Sure.
ground where it was like, okay, I don't really know you. I just know you're a scout. Why is it just you? That was kind of weird. But I do like hearing the basic profiles that they have of them. And it did make me laugh because, you hear draft prospect profile, you think, oh, super in depth. And it was just the same thing that like a lot of people said. I know they didn't show the whole thing, but
Sure.
headstrong, good leader. Move on. Let's not dwell on shit too much. So it's kind of
Hmm.
funny when you think it's super complicated. It's just that sometimes.
Yeah, you don't have to overthink it. Like they know the players, they've been scouting them for months, they know it, and then at this point of the year that we're looking at on the show at this point, and then it's like, okay, we know what kind of player they are inside and out. We don't even need to talk about it. Now we have to figure out they're a good person because we don't want like a Tyreek Hill to come into our building and stuff like that. Like we just need to have a good person at this point. Shout out Tyreek Hill trying to bury sketch too recently. Read the room, Tyreek. Um, Other stuff. To your point with the scouts, I like that they showcased Hannah, but they didn't really go into like we don't have no idea who she is, but they just let her talk a lot, and I thought that's cool that they did that. But to your point, maybe we can go into it because I like giving a voice to the scouts since they truly never ever ever matter in terms of who are they. I think what they could have done is it's cool Xavier Worthy ran fast. I don't care, and they didn't draft him.
No.
Why are we talking about it?
Like at least I would rather have you go deep into one. Like if nothing else, just cut out the worthy and just have her list her resume. Because I
Sure.
don't know who she is, but I bet you any kind of money it's impressive as fuck and she's been around football for a long time. And
Hmm.
people who maybe aren't big NFL fans are like, oh well, woman scout, college, you know. But I
Hmm.
guarantee you she's been around the game for probably 20 years.
Oh yeah. Truthfully, I have no idea who she is, but I would assume she worked her way up from the absolute bottom to where she is, and that would be fascinating. Did she follow Daboll from Alabama to Buffalo to there, or something? It would be just to learn the paths that sometimes people take to get to where they are. I mean, no better showcase than that than Roger Goodell, truly starting from the bottom and working his whole way up. That's interesting. Like, let's talk about that, not about Xavier Worthy running fast, not about some wide receiver who's going to get cut juggling like they did 2 years
Yeah.
ago. Like, let's talk about cool stuff. We don't care about that other
Well,
stuff.
because like I don't know where scouts usually start, like because they have so many. They have college scouts. To your
Yeah.
point, I think you said last week they have NFL scouts. So like there are scouts all
Yep.
the fuck over the place. So where do they start? Not a lot of people know that.
No, no. And there's scouting schools, and that's not really a guaranteed. Like, maybe half the scouts went to a scouting school. Maybe. Like, that's not even, it's kind of a money grab. It's a lot of points. But yeah, it's super fascinating. It'd be great to hear about them. And I mean, we don't really know about Shane either. We know he likes Uncrustables, and he's friends with the Panthers head coach.
Yep.
That's it. Like,
I
I
did
don't know.
like the Elliot Wolf sighting. That was funny. And I understand why they did it, but it was funny that like they talked and then the camera showed nothing. It was like they're
Right.
like talking in a school bathroom or something. That was entertaining to me.
I like the awkward exchange though. Like,
Yeah.
truthfully, it humanizes everybody, but it's very interesting the draft day deals that are getting worked out at the combine, and it was truly like, where are the Patriots? Oh, they're really far away. I'm gonna go take a walk and just let them know that we're interested. Like,
Yeah.
it's a nothing. It's absolutely nothing. It's interesting, and it's interesting as well on a different note because last week they talked about how all in they are on Daniel Jones. And this week they talked about, hey, if you are not taking a quarterback there, let us know. And that only means they're considering quarterback. Like, they're not trading up to take a receiver. There's no way.
Exactly. Exactly. That was the interesting part. It was also interesting that, whether it was coach talk or not, I don't know. But I'd assume, you know, there's no reason for him to lie at that point because it would be true. But how Elliot Wolf immediately said, yeah, we've had a lot of teams say the same thing. Like, just show you that for literally every draft pick, there are probably at least 20 NFL teams with their hand in the bucket.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong. maybe there's a couple players people were looking at, but I think a lot of people had their sights on Drake May. A lot of people. And for the Giants, it would have kind of been a perfect situation. Like, we got Daniel Jones. We're going to see what we have, but Drake May needs a year to learn anyways. Let's put him behind him and just let him learn Daboll's system. There's a lot of teams that were like that.
And I know why they did it too, but it was also interesting that they scouted or they were talking to Caleb Williams. Again, I know why they did that, but like, there's no damn way the Bears were trading down from 1, and there was no way they were trading up from 1 to 1. But interesting to see.
Right. Got to know who the player is. It's good intel. Maybe you find out a weakness of theirs, and hey, maybe we'll play the Bears in a couple of years, and let's exploit that. But at least in the very, very little bit that we saw, makes me a little nervous as a Packers fan. Like, I think don't get me wrong, I think the Bears coaching staff can fuck him up. But if Caleb Williams gets a very good shot, but if he gets to execute his offense with Rome Odunze, who I love, he's my favorite receiver of the class. I love him. Little biased because he won me a fantasy championship, but I do love him a lot. Keenan Allen, who I think perfect mentor for Rome Odunze.
He also
they're the same guy.
Not only that, he definitely has a calling as the most underrated NFL receiver in the 2000s.
Yeah, I think that's fair. People are acting like as well, like, okay, Keenan Allen's gonna live out his last dying days in Chicago. He may have 5 years left. Yeah. That's a stretch, but maybe. I don't think he's going to be bad this year. I don't think he's going to be like a 700-yard guy. I think he's going to push for 1,000.
Well, and he had all those injuries to start his season, or to start his career and in the middle end. But like the last 5, he's been about as durable as they come. And on top of all this, the Bears' schedule: Titans, Texans a little tough, Colts, Rams at home, Panthers, Jags, Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots, all before they play divisional games. Like, Caleb Williams is 10 games to fuck around, and he can still easily skim to 5-5.
NFC North's going to be interesting. It might cannibalize itself, but it's going to be interesting. Going back to Hard Knocks, I thought, early in the show, I thought the general manager, media director relationship was super interesting.
Yes.
And I think that's the way it is for most buildings. I can let you know that's not for all. And I think it's mostly on it's probably equal blame for a lot of those. But just like going through, these are the questions they're going to ask. They are truly in tune. They're just basically a journalist anyway, so they know what they're going to ask. And having a game plan, like, it kind of makes you wonder, how do coaches fuck up, or general managers fuck up so badly sometimes? Like, do you not know what's going to be asked?
And it also like shows you that like people like, oh, they don't pay attention to Twitter. They definitely fucking do. If you
Somebody
don't
does
think
for them.
If you don't think they do, somebody in that building does. Because I thought that was interesting too. Like, I see videos people breaking down your physical reactions on Twitter. It's like, yeah, they see those videos. Yeah. They know.
Yeah, that's super important too. I'm glad that I assume then a lot of these media people are actually paying attention to that, because a lot of that nonverbal, showcasing whatever they're doing, like, it tells a lot. And there's some people who have terrible nonverbal skills, and I think Shane's fine, but there's some people that are absolutely terrible.
The one thing I did love about that, and it was kind of a joke, but you can also tell it was not a joke, was when he was like, how are you going to answer that question? He's like, well, I tried to offer Saquon a fuck ton of money last year, and he said no. Like, that was like, ooh, he's still not too happy about that.
No. And I think next week we're going to get the Saquon stuff to go down. It'll probably be Brian Burns as well, which I'm super interested in. I think Saquon's going to piss Giants fans off next week.
I think, and he only had a little bit, I think he looked really bad in this episode. I think everything was fine, but his reaction, I mean, look, say what you will about the Giants, and they were not perfect in all this, obviously, but like, Saquon says he wants to be here. The Giants are like, hey, we'll let you get your number, and we are always open for him to be like, fuck you mean circling back? Like, he was not happy about that.
No, and I mean, we don't know what was said last year, so to give him the benefit of the doubt, like he played on the franchise tag, so it's like, they told him just sign the franchise tag, you're going to get all this money, and then we'll work out something for next year. And then now they get to this point, and it's like, go see if anyone wants you, because
Yeah,
we're iffy about it. Like, there's no way he felt like they really wanted him, whether they
yeah,
did or not. Like, it can't feel great, but it has to feel better than maybe in the moment he didn't feel this, but it has to feel better than getting the franchise tag again, because that would really
exactly.
piss you off, I would assume.
Exactly, and like say what you will about the Giants, but at least they like said, "Hey, you can go get your figure." Because like you said, they could have handicapped him with the franchise tag. They could have lowballed him to be a dick. Like
Hmm.
from what I'm seeing based off of this, obviously offensive line needs some help, but they did an okay
Yeah.
job of what they needed during this offseason. Like they couldn't afford to pay Barkley all that much money, and I found it interesting that his agent knew the business. Like it was very nonchalant. Like, yep, pretty much we understand, we see it, we weren't surprised. Have a good one. Like very
Right.
professional.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And yeah, I guess they started the whole show out with a salary cap and them being surprised in how big it increased like everybody else. But they did a pretty good job with their roster construction, I suppose. But they talked about all this money they can spend. And
Yeah.
again, they knew what their biggest weakness was for the past almost decade. It's offensive line, and they didn't do enough. They just didn't.
Yeah, and
So
I mean
that pisses me off.
it was weird too because they hinted at obviously neighbors and they got him. They
Hmm.
hinted at Newbin a little bit, and
This
McKinney
show for
walked,
sure.
but they got Newbin, so it's like okay, so clearly they knew what they need to do. They had an extra 14 million. Obviously they got Burns, which changed stuff, but I mean to your point, they talked about offensive line. The first thing you should be doing is holy fuck, let's get an offensive lineman right now so that we can
Hmm.
do whatever we want in the draft. They didn't do anything there. They didn't do anything in the draft, and they still haven't.
Yeah, I have no idea how they didn't draft an offensive lineman. If you swing and miss on offensive lineman in free agency, and then you're waiting for some of these other guys, who I assume they'll sign one of in this second or third wave, really, of free agency. But there's no excuse for any team ever to go a full draft without taking an offensive lineman. It really just doesn't make sense at all.
I mean, at least in the seventh, and say he's a project or a flyer. Like there,
Yeah.
who did they even draft in the seventh? It could have been anybody that caused much of an issue, but I don't know.
How do you not trade back from in the fifth to get an extra seven? Like they talked about going into the draft, we only got 6 picks to work with or whatever the number was. And I don't think they, strayed away from that. Like, I don't think they tried to get more draft picks, which is also weird.
Well, yeah, to your point, I mean, obviously when they went to New England to talk about quarterback, so why did you stand pat at six? Neighbors is your guy, but if you're worried about drafts or picks, you could have easily. I'm sure somebody, well, maybe not, but maybe you can fall back one or two spots. Maybe still get a Romo Dunze. That one might maybe not as obvious, but I mean you can get a few picks there to draft running wide receiver, safety, cornerback, tight end, running back, linebacker. It's a good mix, but no offensive lineman. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they needed a they needed a number one wide receiver. They think they got it with Neighbors. They got it in terms of ego and personality for sure. We'll see if it is what it is on the field. I think it is. I think he's a good player. But I don't blame them for the number 6 pick not moving. That is what it is. Whatever. I don't care. But yeah, I don't know how you and they loved Newbin in the same way that we loved Newbin in the pre-draft process, and it was a great pick in the second round. So I'm not saying they should have gone offensive line there. I think I personally believe they could have traded back in the second and still got Newbin, but they know the board better than me. Maybe couldn't. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird
And
situation, and I think if they miss the playoffs again this year, I think it's going to be directly tied to the offensive line.
well, and I mean it completely different kind of apples to oranges, but I mean do it everybody does in dynasty football ever. Trade a pick next year. Who gives a shit? Teams do that all the time. Like you only have
Yeah,
6 picks. Next year's pick, guess what? It's not going to be a problem for another 365 days. And if you do hit on that offensive lineman And even if you don't, they're probably going to trade what, a fourth, fifth, maybe a third. That's not a guarantee either.
It goes back to what they said last episode, and we talked about it a lot. This year is to figure out what Daniel Jones is, and it's to give him the best opportunity to succeed. They said it, we said it, everybody knows it at this point since they didn't draft a quarterback. And they think giving him the best chance to succeed is going to get a number one wide receiver. I agree. But you also then have to get that offensive lineman. So if you're trading next year's pick to get an offensive lineman for this year, you should be okay with that. If you don't think your offensive line is good enough, which I don't think it is. Plain and simple. Again, I still think there's some start-worthy offensive linemen in free agency who are not going to start or sign until training camp because they don't want to go through training camp, and rightfully so. Like, they shouldn't have to. I mean, we remember what was the last Giants head coach's name? The special teams guy from New England.
McAdoo?
No,
he must have
that
been
was
the
a
guy
couple
before.
ago.
Jesus.
Yeah, McAdoo was from the Packers. I can't remember who the last coach was. He sucked, but
let me get.
Okay, he had like some insane conditioning to start training camp, so much so that he made an offensive lineman not only quit but retire from the NFL because they're not going to be fucking running 2 miles to start practice. It's stupid. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of offensive linemen probably sign once training camp starts, maybe after the first preseason game, because it'll be fine. Do you got the name?
This is insane that he was 5 head coaches ago. Ben McAdoo. It was Ben McAdoo, then Spags in 2017. Looks like it was an interim. Then Pat Shurmur, and then the boy Joe Judge.
Joe Judge. That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, Judge wasn't great. That was another swing and a miss from the Belichick coaching tree. Don't really understand that one. But yeah, Joe Judge. And then he got signed back to New England as an offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator, which was interesting. Would I hope? Okay. Anything else from this episode before what we hope for next week? Next week, we talked about it a little bit. We're going to get the Saquon drama. I hope he looks bad. Personally. That's just me. Maybe it's because I'm an asshole. I don't like Saquon. Never have. And I want running backs to know their role, to be completely honest. Like, read the room. You're not that great. We can replace you pretty easily for very cheap. So I want him to get some bad pub there. What I hope we get to see, and I don't know if they're going to showcase it, but I hope we get a little bit of insight into like draft smoke screens, like floating some fake news out there. Because right before the draft, it really heated up that the Giants were going to go up and get that quarterback. I hope we can just, I want something because those happen across the entire league. And if we get an actual inside look at it, it'll be incredible.
Yeah, that was big. And I saw something on Twitter, and this isn't really all about running backs, but like it showed running players with 1,200 plus rushing yards. And in 2003, it was like 10, 12 players. And this past year was just Christian McCaffrey. Like, understand, it's a new era NFL. There are going to be 2 running backs on each team that can play, that go in and out. I don't care how good you are, even Saquon. Like, there are times he comes out of games and he's better with the complementary role as well. So to your point about like know your role, like yeah, it sucks and it's kind of bullshit compared to like when you started coming up. But like, I don't know why you're bitching about it. Like you don't see kickers complaining they're not making $10 million a year. Like they know their role. Defensive backs sometimes know their role, not usually because they're defensive backs. But I mean, like you said, read the room. When the best one is constantly getting hurt prior to this year in Christian McCaffrey, like, come on, man.
And I get it. I mean, shelf life is short, so you want to make your money where you can make your money, but you decided to go into this. Like, I don't know. Did nobody tell you? Can you not look at the market? It is what it is. You are one of the positions that are going to get the most contact, which means you're going to break down faster. And your position is almost all about reaction and about athleticism. And if your feet can't follow your brain, like it's just not going to work. So
on top of that, like I'm so sick and tired of these guys being like, I need to make money so I can live out the rest of my life. You know how easy it is for a former player to get a job anywhere in football. Like
Yeah,
I understand taxes take a lot out of it. As long as you're
it
not a
does.
dipshit with your money, he could be an analyst anywhere, making a decent amount of money, not have to work too much. He could be
Hmm.
a scout for somebody doing the same thing. Like, let's not act like this is the last. It's either this or McDonald's for you.
Shouldn't be, but maybe, they spent that rookie contract pretty hard and they thought they had 3 more contracts coming up. And the second contract's not as big as I thought. Nothing's guaranteed and they're going to give me all of the carries in the world. A la, I mean, it didn't really happen, but that almost is what happened with Vegas and Josh Jacobs. But I don't know. Is what it is. We also get the Brian Burns trade next week, I think. They talked about it again this week. They keep talking about how expensive it's going to be. I'm excited to see the reaction when it's a second-round pick.
Yeah, because it was interesting because he said 2 seconds and 28 million, and it was interesting because I don't know. I would assume he did this on purpose. He was like, "That's expensive." It's like for Brian Burns, no, that's fucking not. So I think he
No.
was like, I don't think this trade will be able to take this off. So let's float it, but temper expectations. So like you said, I feel like this came together quick. I'm interested.
Yeah, and that's a program changer. That's a complete game changer on defense. Um, it'll be interesting to see what that defense does this year. Because truthfully, I still think they're weak at corner, but that front seven's pretty good. I think Nubin's a playmaker at safety. I think they have another decent safety. I can't remember who it is, but yeah, I think their defense is going to keep them in games, even in a division that theoretically is pretty tough. We'll see how tough they are, but they should be decently tough.
Let me
Um,
tell you, I feel so bad for Jaden Daniels. He has to deal with
yeah,
that front, the Eagles front, Micah Parsons, a new system he's got to learn on the fly and go. Good luck, buddy.
that'll be interesting because Jane Daniels certainly seems like a Cliff Kingsbury guy, and that's not a compliment. So I think we'll see how that goes there. I think Cliff Kingsbury kind of knows football. I'm not even fully bought in to that. I mean, there's stories about him 4 years into head coach of the Cardinals, still figuring out how to call plays on an NFL sized field. And we saw what he did with Kyler Murray, and dare I say, wasn't good. Don't think he developed him one bit. And Jane Daniels needs to be developed. And if he isn't, I don't know. I don't know,
It's
because like Kyler Murray only made things work because he could get away from contact. I don't think Jane Daniels is that kind of athlete. I think he's fast. I don't think he's that
he
quick.
actively runs towards it sometimes. That's what
That's
scares
true.
me. I,
That's
I
true.
have nothing against Shane Daniels for the record. This
I think
just
he's a good player.
seems so reminiscent of RG3 in the sense that
Yeah.
injury history, they're not going to protect him. He doesn't have a good system in place, and he's already had some bad injuries. This could go bad really fast, and I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like it's going to be RG3 again.
It does seem that way. It would be a little bit poetic in a way. Do they have a white quarterback backing him up? I don't even know who's still there. Is Heineke still there?
And they brought back their yellow pants that were last seen.
Oh yeah.
Was that RG? Maybe it was seen before that. I don't think it was that big of a deal, but
Yeah. It's a big deal, I guess. Good for them.
who do
They
you
still have a
who do you
shitty name.
who do you think is the backup in Washington right now? If you had to guess.
Oh, I do know who it is. Isn't it Mariota?
Yes, but I want to say Jeff Driscoll because that's funnier.
Fuck Jeff Driscoll.
Sam Hartman too. Quarterback race.
Wow.
Watch out.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Washington's interesting because they at least have weapons. So we'll see what happens, I suppose. But yeah, this was episode 2 of Hard Knocks. A little bit of a reaction to it. So let us know what you thought of it. Let us know what you want to see next week. Again, I think it's going to be the start of free agency. I don't think it's even going to be the heart of. Do we know how many episodes this is? Is it like 6 or 8?
I think it's 6 because I
Okay.
think it's supposed to be done pretty soon. I think it's supposed to be done before August.
Okay. I mean, that would make sense. We're 2 in. So leading up to August and then probably a direct lead into Chicago Bears Hard Knocks would be my guess. Um, Yeah, I mean, I assume the last one will be OTAs. One will be just on the draft, and then we still have 2 other episodes. So next week, and then the heart of free agency, and then draft, and then OTAs,
Yeah,
probably.
I'm really fucking excited for the Bears because I know they're going to be talking up the Packers a lot. It's going to sound like little brother, and I will enjoy every single second of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so lame. Montez Sweat just talked about again the other day. I'm not losing to the Packers this year. Okay, great.
Do
Are you gonna
something
lose
about
the other games?
it. Yeah,
Well, that too. But like, okay, so if you go 2-15, success. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. And by the way, do anything. You're a defensive end for the Chicago Bears who is fine. He's an
You
okay player.
you had a chance with a great I'll say a great defense at that point with a great defense with nothing to lose in the Packers' worst season in terms of expectations to keep them out of the playoffs in their house and you shit an egg.
Yeah,
They did actions, buddy, actions.
yeah. We'll see how it is, but we'll be back next week with it.